from Shiny Road University Studios. This is Life Lessons with a Legend, Bobby Lee Jordan. I am excited to come and tell you a story tonight. I hope you'll find it interesting, and I'll tell you why at the close of this episode, why I'm telling you this story. This goes back a little over 100 years ago. My grandmother, which we call her Grandma, affectionately, there was no disrespect intended, but Grandma was a little girl in Chesterfield County. And they were very poor folks, as everybody just about in Chesterfield County was very poor. And there came a drought, and Grandma and her mama lived in a little old house up near Woodard Mill, but it was dry because of the drought. Their well ran dry. This was a time when people had a well. They had a bucket on the end of a chain, and they would let the bucket down into the well, pull up water, and dip it out with a tin dipper. Well, they were just at their wits' end. Grandma's mama, my great grandma, was at wits' end, and so she sent my grandma in search of water. So Grandma took that dipper, because she was too little to carry a bucket full of water. She took the dipper and she set out. She went to what she thought must have been the ends of the earth. Actually, she got down into Darlington County and found one of these artesian wells that are somewhat abundant in this area around Lake Robinson and on the edge of the county. And she got this cool, refreshing water, took a sip. It was the best water she had ever tasted. She started back home with that one dipper of water. And along the way, she saw a little deer. And the deer was just panting for something to drink. Everything was just dry as it could be. And so the little deer said to my grandma, "Oh, you have water? Can I have a sip of water?" And Grandma, never having seen a talking deer before, stopped and obliged the little deer. Gave her a drink of water out of the dipper, and she went on her way. She didn't notice that the dipper remained full of water, and instead of it being tin now, it had turned to silver. She continued on up the road a little piece, and she saw an old man out there scratching around in his garden. What garden it was dry. And the old man asked my grandma, said, "Little girl, you got water there. Can I have a sip and put a little bit on my garden?" And Grandma said, I guess you can. So she handed him the dipper. He took a sip of water, splashed a little bit out on his garden, and it just sprang to life. He returned the silver dipper to my grandma, and she continued on the way home. She didn't notice that the dipper remained full of water and had turned to gold. When she got home, back with her mama, they took a sip of water. It was so good and refreshing. And an old lady from down the road came by and said, "Oh, I need a drink of water. Can I have it?" And great grandma said, "Well, this is all we have." And Grandma took the gold dipper, handed it to the old lady, and she took a sip and said, "Oh, this is the best water I've ever tasted." And she turned and poured it all out on the ground. And they didn't know what to do. And then she took that dipper, which had turned into crystals or diamonds, and she tossed it straight up into the air as high as she could toss it. And they didn't see it again until after dark. But in the meantime, where that old lady had poured the dipper out into the ground, a spring came up. And that is now the origins of Black Creek. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Good, clean, refreshing water springing up out of the earth. And Grandma never went without water again. But that night they walked out into darkness, and they looked up into the sky, and guess where that dipper was? It was up in the sky, and they called it the Big Dipper. And that's the story of how the Big Dipper came to be. Now, you might be thinking, "I don't believe that." Well, that's the way my grandma told me the story. And that's the way I tell the story. Now, you may choose to tell your children or grandchildren or friends or neighbors a little different way. You can add or take away from it, but have a little fun with how the Big Dipper came to be in the sky. Any questions? Anybody? No questions? Good. Remember to be kind, love one another, and until I see you again, act like you got some sense.